This episode was recorded during the virtual meeting of the ParlAmericas Parliamentary Staff Network on Climate Change and Sustainability, which explored good practices for parliamentary staff to enhance the environmental sustainability of their parliament. During the session, Transforming Parliament, Strategies for Environmental and Social Sustainability, Tim Reeve, President of Reeve Consulting, discusses the 4 pillars of sustainable procurement and how they can be leveraged to strengthen green procurement practices within parliaments, while also delivering social welfare benefits. In the latter part of this presentation, he shares practical recommendations for parliaments aiming to improve their sustainability efforts and reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Thank you very much. Bonjour, buenos dias, good morning. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak and present with you this morning. This is really an important topic, and I'm so pleased to have the opportunity to share some comments about sustainable procurement and why we at our firm and with our clients feel this is really an important mechanism to enable you to achieve your sustainability goals and your sustainability strategies. A little bit about myself and our firm. We're based in Vancouver, British Columbia. This is a picture of the Vancouver. Our office is located near the top right-hand corner of the screen near the water, and we're a team of 6 people, and we work with clients around Canada and around the world. We do quite a lot of international work as there's a growing interest in this practice of sustainable procurement and how this can assist organizations and parliaments, government agencies in advancing their various sustainability priorities. And of course, our goal is to assist organizations in achieving their sustainability objectives by looking at the products and services that they purchase and buying products and services that are greener products, more socially responsible, free of child and slave labor, sourced from Indigenous organizations. This because of quite significant environmental and social issues that are affecting us today, whether that flooding that we see, excessive amounts of waste from our linear economies, the depletion of natural resources from overconsumption, or as was mentioned a few times, greenhouse gas emissions. We know there are some very serious issues that are facing our planet, and we need to change some of the systems that we're using, and procurement and supply chain is a major opportunity to create a more sustainable future for our organization. And when we speak about sustainable procurement, I just want to emphasize that we, promote what we would consider to be a best value model to procurement and acquisition. It's critical that we buy products and services that have good price and are of good quality and meet our service requirements. But what we're suggesting is that also, in order to achieve best value, we must be considering the sustainability impacts, both negative impacts and positive opportunities associated with what we buy. And that considering sustainability should be part of the decision-making when we're acquiring goods and services for our parliaments and for our broader organizations. And that's because there are a number of hidden impacts related to the products and services that we use, and that some research would suggest that for a typical organization, a significant amount, maybe 70 or 80% of its environmental or social impacts will actually reside or live within the supply chain. And so while the operations that we do around the office, around the parliament, around our organization is very important, it's those impacts within the supply chain that in fact can be quite significant and even more significant in some cases. And that's why we believe this is so important. I was asked a little bit about the 4 pillars, and this is something that we really believe strongly in within our firm. And that is that sustainability, which can be quite a broad term, in the context of procurement and acquisition, could be considered as having 4 pillars or 4 domains. The environmental pillar, the ethical or social pillar, the Indigenous pillar, and the human rights pillar. And I'll just explain a bit briefly why this is important. I think most of us are familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals. I would just mention that Goal 12 is specific to sustainable consumption and production, and that's really the home for sustainable procurement. It's also, I believe, true that Goal 12 in sustainable procurement is an enabler or a catalyst to achieving the outcomes that we want in most of the other goals. And so, under our definition of 4 pillars of sustainable procurement, we see, products and services have environmental impacts, GHG emissions, waste and packaging impacts, the depletion of resources and the impact on ecosystems. And so there's environmental impacts with what we purchase, and they need to be considered as part of the purchasing decision. Similarly, from a social justice and social capital perspective, there's social impacts or social opportunities. And when we're buying products and services, we want to certainly ensure that we're giving opportunities to local suppliers, small and medium-sized enterprises, creating opportunities for training and skills development in the service contracts for landscaping or cleaning or security or these kinds of things. And so there's positive social outcomes that we can achieve by being thoughtful about the kind of service contractors that we might utilize as part of our operations. Similarly, certainly here in Canada, and I think in many of the countries represented on the call today, there's strong economic involvement from our local Indigenous peoples. And there's huge opportunities, we believe, to create economic opportunity and more justice for Indigenous peoples by involving them more meaningfully in our economies. And that means contracting with Indigenous entrepreneurs and Aboriginal entrepreneurs, or working with suppliers who will employ Indigenous people or subcontract portions of the work to Indigenous and Aboriginal entrepreneurs and organizations as a mechanism to engage them more meaningfully in the economy. Sometimes we hear this phrase, we don't want to give a handout, we want to give a hand up. And procurement is one of the mechanisms for doing this. And then, of course, we're also incredibly concerned about slave labor, child labor, unfair labor practices in the supply chain. And so there's an ethical pillar to our sustainable procurement model, whereby we want to ensure that the suppliers that we work with, both selling products and also providing services, are meeting some minimum expectations around treatment of workers and fair labor practices, often expressed by a policy document, sometimes called a supplier code of conduct. And so the reason that we believe strongly in these 4 pillars under sustainable procurement is that every product and service will have a different combination of risks and opportunities. And so we want to be open as we design the specifications and requirements and criteria that go into our contracting and bid documents to using the right blend of environmental, social, Indigenous, and ethical requirements to try and get that best value objective. When we're buying furniture, we might be thinking about the resources that go into that furniture, maybe the packaging or the labor in manufacturing. When we're buying landscaping services, we might think about some of the social opportunities for local businesses or training, or some of the green issues related to the herbicides and pesticides that might be used on the grounds. Or if we're doing a construction and renovation project with inside of Parliament, we might think about greener building materials and also social opportunities. If we're doing art and decoration, we might be thinking about the opportunity to showcase Indigenous art. So every product and service that we're purchasing will have a different set of a subset of environmental, social, ethical, and indigenous risks and opportunities. And we want to construct requirements that go into our bid documents, into our RFPs, into our negotiations with suppliers to try and focus on those things that are very relevant to what we're buying right now. And so and this is all, and I'll conclude in a moment here. This is all in service of advancing a parliament's sustainability plans and strategies. And as you know, Tanya Hernandez mentioned, there's different goals around water or waste or GHG reductions, and those blue boxes in the middle of this slide are illustrative of the kinds of priorities that you might have within your sustainability strategies. And what we're suggesting is that procurement is going to be an enabler or a catalyst to achieving those kinds of outcomes. Because we believe really that it's very difficult to get to carbon neutrality or net zero if you're not looking at what you purchase and the GHGs associated with those products and services, either directly through their operation or perhaps within the supply chain. Or it's very difficult to achieve zero waste within your parliament if you're not looking at the packaging that comes on the products and services that you're buying, or how durable things may be to extend their useful life. And it's hard to advance a social justice agenda if you're not thinking about how the workers that are making products that you used or providing services within your facilities are being treated by their employers. So we see sustainable procurement really as the engine or the catalyst of your overall sustainability plans and strategies. And so final remark here, and I'll pause for any clarifications, is we see sustainability breaking down into three potential components within your procurement processes. At the bottom of the blue sustainable procurement triangle are those minimum standards for how workers are treated. That supplier code of conduct, no child labor, no forced labor, no harassment, fair pay, etc. The middle of the triangle is, getting better products and services that have sustainability features and benefits. And that's a very key area that we mostly focus on. And the top of the triangle is to get those better products and services from suppliers who themselves are on a sustainability journey and demonstrating leadership in how they operate their company, their practices, their policies, their targets for climate GHG reductions, their own treatment of their employees, or their volunteering and donating in the community. And at the end of the day, we want to buy products and services that represent best value, whereby the suppliers meet minimum standards, provide, if I could say, greener products and services, and themselves are demonstrating good leadership practices that would be in alignment with our own values and expectations around sustainability. I think that what I would like to suggest is that if we're going to use sustainable procurement as this engine or this catalyst for achieving our sustainability objectives, we need to think about sustainable procurement as a program within our overall, sustainability initiatives. And this represents a best practice framework for a program. And that would be that you would have a strategy and plan around your sustainable procurement activities. You would have a code of conduct and policy related to your procurement. The people who are responsible for contracting and purchasing and acquisition could follow some procedures. They might be able to use some tools to collect information from suppliers or to communicate requirements and expectations. Ideally, they would get some training on how to use those tools, and you would be doing some measurement and reporting on the results of your efforts to purchase greener or more local or indigenous products and services, and that you would be regularly speaking with your suppliers and having dialogue and conversation with them around how they can improve the products and services from the middle of the triangle, or their practices at the top of the triangle, or their treatment of workers at the bottom of the triangle. And these would all be components of a high-performing sustainable procurement program. And this can be scaled to be a very small, for small organizations or larger organizations. We do work with big cities and universities, federal government here in Canada, implementing this kind of a framework. And so I just want to say that, I would encourage organizations to think about being very formal at adopting, a sustainable procurement program as a mechanism to assist in their sustainability journey. However, we also believe very strongly in keeping things simple and moving quickly and achieving action. And one of the icons on the lower part of this slide is called HIPO. At Reeve, we call it the HIPPO list. And the HIPPO list really is like a top 10 shopping list of products and services that we believe have high impact or high opportunity. And so we really encourage you to think, while you might be developing a sustainable procurement policy and procedures and training and tools, etc., to immediately begin to identify within your own organization those products and services that potentially have very high sustainability impacts that could be mitigated, or high opportunities to create more social justice, or opportunities for Indigenous organizations, or to showcase green technologies. So thinking in the context of a parliament, it might be some of the items on this list that you may be purchasing that, in our opinion, would represent HIPPOs, high impact procurement opportunities, the electronic equipment and extending the life of that electronic equipment, or professional services and the opportunity for training and skills development within the provision of professional services, or the GHG emissions associated with fleet or travel, or the durability of some of the office furniture, or the service related to the installation and removal of furniture, or the service around cleaning or catering or construction and renovation. Each organization will have its own unique set of HIPPO high impact procurement opportunities, but we believe these are some of them. And my main point is that while you're building the infrastructure of a good sustainable procurement program, these elements from this slide, we want you to also focus in on those high impact procurement opportunities. And if you're going out to bid or renewing a contract for these kinds of products and services that you believe have high impact or opportunity, then regardless of how advanced you are at building out your overall program, focus in on some of these risks and opportunities and work to embed them into your next procurement, your next bid document, your next contract renegotiation. And this can be done at different levels. Obviously the tenders and RFPs are a very critical place to do this kind of work. But even in low value spending that may be happening day to day, travel services, food and beverage, catering, meeting organization, this sustainable procurement can show up at different levels of spending within your organization. And of course, it is a combination of both working on the bids that when we go out to issue bids, but also regularly dialoguing with our suppliers and having conversations with our existing suppliers around how can we improve the sustainability outcomes of the products and services that you're providing to us right now. And of course, we believe that, easy items like office supplies and paper, cleaning services, cleaning products, or some of the building materials, landscaping services. I thought that was a beautiful picture that Tanya Hernandez showed us of the legislator building in Mexico. And I could imagine there was probably a lot of thought that went into choosing plant materials that would be appropriate for the climate, looking at reducing the use of toxic pesticides and herbicides that might be applied on those grounds, maybe thinking about building social capital through the landscaping companies that might be tending to the gardens, maybe even potentially in some instances growing some local food that could be utilized within meals and catering. So these kinds of sustainability initiatives are often enabled through purchasing and procurement. And that's why we're such big believers in the idea of creating a sustainable procurement program. And while creating a program, very quickly focusing in on just a handful of products and services. And the reason to focus on these handful of products and services is because it can take a bit of time to approve policies and update procedures and roll out training. And while we're doing that good stuff, we want to make sure that we can have some immediate impact to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, to reduce waste, to create social opportunities. So we really believe strongly. And finally, I would say that if we can do this well, if we can find that best value around price, quality, service, and sustainability, then there's lots of benefits. And I was so pleased to hear Tanya mention how, they're seeing financial savings from some of these sustainability initiatives. And we think that when we do this properly, we're going to get sustainable development benefits. We're going to create stories that we can tell about the greening and sustainability initiatives within our parliaments to improve the brand and public perception. We're going to see some financial savings through saving energy and reducing waste. And by knowing more about how our suppliers operate and the products and services they're selling to us, we'll reduce the risk of buying things that might be unhealthy or made with child labor. And our employees are going to feel good, knowing that we're taking these steps to really be authentic about aligning our sustainability mission with, what we do every day, the products and services that are used around the office and around the parliament. And when we do this effectively, we can expect that we'll be sending a signal to the marketplace that, good price, good quality, good service, but also we're looking for sustainability. Sustainability in terms of minimum standards for workers, sustainability in terms of greener products and services, and sustainability in terms of how you operate your company as a supplier. So, final thing I'll just mention for now will be that, in Canada, this is a journey that many organizations are on to implement sustainable procurement. And in Canada, we've created a network of large cities, large universities, federal government agencies, some of our utilities and crown corporations to share examples of how they're implementing sustainable procurement, or who are some of the suppliers that they're working with, and sharing knowledge and resources, an online library of different specifications for different product categories, or examples of policies, or examples of staff training materials. And so I really encourage everyone on the call to think about, advancing your own sustainable procurement efforts, but thinking about, well, who are some of the other large institutions in my community, other universities, the city, the hospitals, who are similarly interested in reducing their environmental or sustainability impact and might likely be sharing some of the same suppliers that you're working with. And so there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration, and we really encourage this work to be advanced by working through networks, very much like this network here. So that's if you're interested in learning more about some of this work, we invite you to reach out and contact us. You can scan the QR code here on the screen. You can reach out to me. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Jimena, who's originally from Mexico City. She's one of the team members at Reeve Consulting, working and obviously fluent in Spanish. So thank you again for the opportunity to share a little bit of the sustainable procurement story and why we feel it's important, and some of the quick wins or HIPPO categories that we think should be part of your efforts if they're not already moving forward. Thank you.